Good evening, one and all. Welcome to our podcast, The Absolute Truth. My name's Greg. I'm here with Christina, and we have a special guest tonight, a Korean war veteran. His name's Bob McCutcheon. We're excited to get to visit and share with you this evening. Let's jump right into our first segment. Did you know? Christina?
Did you know Texas State Senate passed the bill that bans critical race theory? We spoke a lot about critical race theory last week. Greg hit a lot of details on that. It's on our website if you want to get more information about what critical race theory is. And more states need to follow suit with Texas and do the same exact thing. Also, I don't know did you know that there was a 10-year-old girl on her school bus, and she was not wearing her mask properly, apparently, from Colorado. And her bus driver decided that it was appropriate to slap her right in her face. I don't know about any of you other parents, but if somebody slapped my child on the face, I'd be very displeased. He was fired, as he should be. So thankful to hear that he lost his job. He can't go around slapping people's kids in the face. Also, did you know, according to Truth, Justice, Freedom for Children, 40% of convicted pedophiles do not spend a day in prison? What is going on? When is enough enough? When are we, as the people, going to say enough with this pedophile stuff? And they're only spending no days in prison. 40% of them. That's got to stop. So, Greg, what's one of your did you knows?
Well, my did you know has to do with what's happening with the forensic audit over in Arizona in Maricopa County. There's been substantial irregularities that they found. The county is reneging on cooperating with the subpoenas that were given to them that mandated them to hand over any and all information, having to do with the election. They had the data on the routers that were used in the election. They're refusing to turn them over. They're stonewalling as far as giving access to the tabulation devices used in the election. How are they doing that? By rejecting the request to hand over the passwords, which the county claims they don't have. That has to be a lie because the county claims it did its own audit of the devices. So how would they do their own audit, right? They would need the password to do that. So that's impossible. Also, they have not provided any chain of custody documents for any of the ballots, keeping track of the ballots. Does that chain of custody document even exist? Furthermore, the ballots were not stored properly. They were kept in unsealed bags. Some of the bags were open, but they had torn seals, which means at one time, right, they were sealed. Who opened them? Why did they open them? In addition, there was a major discrepancy between the reported vote totals and the actual numbers that were inside the box that are usually reported. The total is usually higher than the number of ballots in the box, meaning quite a few boxes had missing ballots. Why are they missing? Where did they go? What was on them? Furthermore, they had missing databases. The entire directories from the election management system has been mysteriously deleted. Why would that happen? Have you ever heard of harvested ballots? I think Christina's going to refer to that as we continue too. Lastly, we were told that this was a perfectly safe election. No problems at all. Republicans are conspiracy theorists. And Maricopa County in Arizona is the very picture of election integrity, right? No, wrong. Nothing can be further from the truth. Think about it. This is just one county in one state. What if we evaluated every county in every contested swing state? There's also so many sources that we can refer to continue learning about what's happened in the elections with the fraud and the corruption. Mike Lindell put out a great piece. It's called Absolute Proof. You can find that on BitChute. We'll put a link on our website. What can we do about election fraud? And that's one of the things Christine and I have discussed quite a bit. that should be one of the main issues we have to tackle, because we have the upcoming elections, right? The midterms, it's coming up here quick, and then another presidential election. If we don't get this fixed, will it even matter? So we have to make some noise. We need to get in touch with the Supreme Court. We have to make sure they know we, the people, want this investigated. We want to make sure that they know we got their back, that we support them. These threats that they've had and caused them not to hear the cases, we need to make sure that they feel confident. So how do we do that? Go to the website. Their website is www.supremecourt.gov. I want you to click on a blue box that says Public Information Office, and then that'll direct you to an email where you can put your name in there and express what demands you have. And I think our demand should be, this needs to be investigated. It's not just happened in one county. This is happening all over in all the swing states. You can send a letter to this address. It's called the Supreme Court of the United States, 1 First Street Northeast, Washington, D.C., 20543. 20543. What's a stamp? 55 cents. All of us need to do that. You also can call the Supreme Court. There's 3 different phone numbers they list, and express your demands. Okay, what's the next Did You Know, Christina?
Did you know that there's going to be a child cash benefit hit accounts for 39 million American families in July? $300 per child under 6, $250 per child 6 and older. If you are single and you earn up to $75,000 or more a year, or $155,000 as married filed jointly, you are eligible for that. So I'm wondering, what in the world are we basically laying the foundation out for socialism, starting to get Americans dependent on receiving checks every single month? Because what I've found, when you have money coming in for a X amount of months, you begin to rely on that money, and you put into your budget accordingly to the amount of money that you have coming in extra. And then what happens is you rely on that money for your everyday life. And so that's exactly what the plan is, to make Americans rely on that. So then when they threaten to take it from you, you're going to not want that taken away. So you might be willing to give up a couple freedoms to keep that money, to keep you afloat, because you're so dependent on that money after maybe a year or two of receiving it. And then they want to take it from you. And I guarantee when they want to remove that additional money, there's going to be a freedom that's attached to the
money, right? There's going to be a mandate that they're going to say, in order for you to get your monthly supplement, you're going to have to give up this freedom or give up that freedom.
Right. Did you know, according to U.S. Sun, offenders getting their sentences cut in half if they receive the COVID shot? Wow. Unbelievable.
So somebody who's a convicted criminal, if they get a COVID shot, you're telling me that whatever penalty or sentence they get gets cut in half?
Yes. So it's, I guess you don't have to go according to good behavior anymore. It's about doing what you're told.
Again, what you just talked about, giving up, right, freedoms.
Yes. Also, did you know, according to Rand Paul, your government sent $1.1 million to dead people for a stimulus check? Wonder how many folks also voted absentee in that 1.1 million. I would venture to say 100% of them.
Harvested votes. There we go.
Unbelievable. Also, just on a side note, all of you out there with a sweet tooth, studies found that Skittles and Starburst are no longer considered safe. So if you like Skittles, like my son, or Starburst, you might want to reconsider. As we all know, I just saw something on Facebook that was interesting. It was a meme with, in the 50s, all the people walking around in the streets, and they were all very trim. And then if you look at a picture of people walking in the streets today, a lot of people are overweight. They are putting so much junk in our food that it's very hard to maintain a thin figure with all the crap that's being put into our food and all the processed food and all of that. So And then they make the organic food so expensive that it's very difficult when you have a family to be able to afford to eat good quality food. So they kind of get you. If you don't have the money for to eat healthy, then you got to eat the junk.
Yep, exactly. The junk in turns into more junk that we carry, huh?
Yes.
I just wanted to refer back to my first Did You Know and make sure I give credit. That information came from OAN News, and the reporter was Person Sharp. My next Did You Know has to do with our governor, DeWine. On May 12th, he did an announcement. I'm going to give you a quote. I listened to him talk, and just some things that stood out. He said, quote, "Now we have a powerful weapon that is almost 100% effective in beating this virus. The vaccine is here. It's stronger and better than medical experts ever imagined. And now anyone 12 and older can use it to protect themselves, to put an invisible shield of protection around them. Everyone can now control their own health. Everyone can now control their own destiny. So it is time to end the health orders. We have a tested and proven weapon with this vaccine that all Ohioans 12 and over can now utilize, and those individuals who are vaccinated can no longer get the virus and can no longer spread it. Each person now has access to a mighty weapon that they can use to get 100% protection. It's now up to each Ohio citizen whether to use it or not. There comes a time when individual responsibility simply must take over. Each Ohio citizen will make their own decision about wearing a mask, social distancing, and how to protect themselves." Now, when I read that, or listened to it, and then I wrote it down and I read through it, some words that stuck out to me was powerful weapon, 100% effective, beating the virus, stronger and better than medical experts ever imagined, invisible shield, control their own health. And how in the world control our own destiny? Because we're taking a vaccine, right? They've tested, and this weapon is proven. Has it really been proven?
No.
And has it really been tested?
No.
I mean, our own FDA didn't approve it. Thank you, Christina. It's a mighty weapon, and then he gets into basically trying to, right, make people feel guilty by saying individual responsibility is a must. I don't know about you, but maybe we should have a sick and tired where we're not going to take it segment anymore. But it's totally up to the individual whether they feel that they should do the vaccine or not. We've done a lot of research. We're going to talk more about this, but that vaccine's not proven. There could be a lot of things that come down the pipe that can be very harmful for those who did get the vaccine. And it might be just fine. We don't know. But why would I take, here's my opinion, my personal opinion. Why would I take a vaccine that is designed to ward off a virus that I have a 99.994% survival rate? And that number is skewed, as I referred to before, right? Because it's including people who've been cause of death on the death certificates, been improperly placed on there, right? I told you about my one friend who brother-in-law passed away from cardiovascular disease. And what did they put on the death certificate? COVID-19. And that's just one example of many. Talk about this speech that DeWine gave us. A couple other things they were talking about when he was done was how's this going to affect with lifting the mandates of the masks, right? That we don't have to have those on anymore. What's that going to do with employers? How are they going to handle it? And a couple examples they were talking about was Chase Bank mandates that their employees wear a mask if they don't have the vaccine. So their employees will still have to wear that. Amazon, they're requiring that their employees provide proof of vaccination in order to work for them. And they have like a portal where you have to enter all your information and show proof and answer questions. And then they give you a sticker that shows on your badge that you've been vaccinated. How's that going to work out in Ohio? Well, OSHA had a publication out recently concerning these issues for these employers in Ohio. And it went on to say, if you're going to force your employees to be vaccinated, then any adverse reaction is work-related, and you can be liable. Any employee who decides to not be vaccinated cannot suffer any repercussions as a result of the choice. That's good news, wouldn't you think, Christina?
Yes.
Also, the Bureau of Workers' Compensation, the head guy was interviewed. He said, if you mandate the employees to get the vaccination, understand that if there's any adverse reactions to the vaccine, you're subject the employers are subject to pay out workers' compensation. So I thought that was good news to hear. What's your next did you know, Christina?
That was all of my Did You Knows.
Oh, okay. Fantastic.
We are so excited today as we welcome Robert McCutcheon, a 90-year-old Korean War veteran. And I have had the pleasure of knowing Bob for over a year now, and he is an amazing patriot and warrior for this country. And I'm so excited and honored that he took time out of his day to spend with us this afternoon to give us some information regarding what he went through as a young man in the war. And I think that he's got some things some stories to tell us that are going to be very informative. And so we're going to go ahead and start. The first question I'd like to ask Bob, which I kind of already introduced it, but what was the war that you were in to defend our country, and what year was that? Do you remember the year?
Yes, I do. The name of the war was Korean War, and it lasted 3 years from 1950 to 1953.
Wow. And so were you there the entire 3 years?
No, I was under combat conditions. I was there for 14 months. I was a machine gunner, a light 30 caliber machine gunner, which shot 750 rounds a minute.
Wow.
How old were you, Bob, when you entered the military?
I think either 19 or 28. I'm not quite exactly sure. 19 or 20.
Okay. What made you decide to join the military? Was it the Marines you were in?
Yes, it was the Marine Corps.
Okay. What led you to push to get involved protecting our country?
During the Second World War, I wanted to be a member of the armed forces, but I was too young to join. And from that time on, I always wanted to do something for my country other than watch television or the radio. I wanted to be involved in the fighting for whatever they wanted to fight for.
Excellent.
And how long were you in the Marines before you got called to war?
Maybe a year at the most.
Oh, okay. Did you get put on a ship and shipped away, or did you know exactly what was going to happen? Did they just call you out, or how did that all happen?
What happened to me was I was sent to California for advanced combat training, and once you're sent to California for advanced combat training, it's pretty evident what the next move will be. And the next move for me was getting on a ship for 13 days and landing in South Korea.
So you were on a ship for 13 days. That had to be a interesting adventure.
It was very comfortable. I'm being sarcastic. There was 25,000 troops on that ship.
Wow. And what was the mood on the ship? Were the boys nervous, or was there a lot of guys that were sick from seasick, or how was that trip?
Well, at any time of the day, you look over the side of the ship and you see a bunch of guys hanging there.
Oh, jeez.
That's at any time of the day. What was the mood? The mood was anticipation. Nobody knew what was going to happen. Nobody knew exactly where we were going except to the country of Korea. We went to a place called, it slips my mind right at the moment, but we landed in the southern part of Korea.
When you were on the way to Korea, didn't you say you stopped in Japan? Was that for a day or so?
On the way to Korea, we stopped in Japan to pick up supplies. I guess they didn't inform me why they stopped, but they stopped for 24 hours, and I kind of believe that it was for supplies, for ammunition, food, water, etc.
When you were there and arrived in Korea, what was going on? What were your thoughts? I know you said, like, on the boat you had that anticipation, but Was there any fear? Did you notice fear in some of the guys? Were you like, oh, what are we going to be, killed, or what's going to be happening here?
Well, again, for overuse of the word, there was a lot of anticipation. There was a train waiting for us, and the train took us almost up to the front lines where we boarded trucks and were sent to our various places.
Bob, I remember you telling me like you had so much time that you would be on the front line and then you'd get relieved. What was that time span?
It varied somewhat, but the usual time was you went up on the line for 30 days, and the line is where all the combat was. We call it the MLR, Main Line of Resistance. You were there for approximately 30 days, and then you were relieved by another regiment or company, I don't know whichever it was, and then you were taken back to the rear, maybe 5-6 miles, where there was no fighting, and back there you rested up, doing absolutely nothing except resting.
And Bob, what were some of the stories that you remember about the time that you were there that really stick out in your mind, that are memorable? I'm sure you have many, but just a couple that really...
Yeah, like you said, I don't know where to start. I can talk for an hour on that. Let me think for a second.
Can I ask you something? I remember one time you telling me about a tank that you had to be under and sleep, and you want to tell a little bit more details about that?
Well, that was really nothing, Chris, except I was on the line, and I hadn't slept in several days, I guess it was, and I was extremely tired, and there was a tank that was firing over into enemy lines, and I was looking for some safe place to lay down, and I saw this tank, and I went up and I crawled under this tank, and I fell asleep under the tank while it was firing 90 millimeter shells to the other lines. Is that what you were talking about?
Yes, I find that very interesting.
You must have been pretty tired.
Yes.
Yes, I was pretty tired.
It's a good thing that tank didn't move much, huh?
Yeah.
Any other stories that stick out in your mind that you would like to share?
The front lines is where it's called the main line of resistance. And out in front of the front lines, maybe 100 yards, there's a position that's called an outpost. The outpost is to intercept anything that the enemy might be doing that you can tell. And I was on this outpost, and I became very ill, and I was evacuated from the outpost to, what do you call those hospitals? MASH. They took me to a hospital called MASH. And during the time that I was at MASH, this outpost was completely overrun by Chinese, and the casualties were 100% against the United States. I was lucky because I was in the hospital. Other than that, I would have been dead.
Wow.
Real quick, Bob, I remember you telling me that a comparison to the Vietnam War just jogged my memory on that. You told me that the Korean War, it lasted about 3 years?
The Korean War lasted 3 years. The Vietnam War lasted 10 years. The Vietnam War had 36,000 casualties, dead. The Korean War had real close to it, 35-9 or something in that vicinity. In other words, the Korean War was much more vicious than the Vietnam War. You can see and understand that by the statistics that I just gave you.
Absolutely.
Why did we have a war in Korea?
Supposedly, they didn't come and tell me, Bob, we're having this war in Korea because, but from what I know and from what I hear, it was to stop communism. they didn't want the communists to take over to Korea. They wanted Korea to become a democratic country. The people that opposed that were the Russians. The Russians, at the end of the Second World War, were given 50% of Korea. United States had the other 50%. The Russians wanted Korea to be communist. United States wanted to be a democratic country.
I gotcha. Yeah, I remember you telling me that. Very interesting.
What about that story where you were in the bunkers and what the sleeping conditions were like in your bunkers? I believe you were telling me that you had rats crawling all over you at night while you were sleeping and guys were shooting at the rats.
Korea was heavily infested with rats. And in the main line, there was bunkers built where you could get some rest if nothing was going on. And if you laid down in one of the bunkers, the rats would crawl all over you. So what you had to do, you had a sleeping bag, and you would pull the zipper up over your head so the rats could not get at you. The way they tried to eliminate this is with pistols. They would shoot at the rats, and they would kill the rats with pistols.
So you're trying to sleep and you hear pistols being shot all night.
Yeah.
What was the sleeping like? I mean, was it always warm? Was it cold at times? How was the weather when you guys were there?
Korea has the same weather conditions in the United States. So when it was hot here, it was hot there. When it was cold here, it was cold there. The only difference is the the temperature would drop a lot lower in Korea than it did in the United States. I was in conditions where it was 20 degrees below zero.
And all you had during that time was a sleeping bag?
Well, they didn't furnish beds, so
You didn't have any extra blankets or anything?
I have nothing. No, nothing.
Wow, that's crazy.
No, that's cold.
And that too. I also heard, well, did you have any other stories that you would like to share?
One afternoon, we were laying barbed wire at the bottom of this particular hill that led up to our trenches. We were laying barbed wire, and the hill was clear of trees and everything else. It was just a steep hill, and it went from where we laid the barbed wire up to the trench. And this one particular day, after I finished laying the barbed wire, I was walking up this hill, and out of the corner of my eye or my ear, I heard this airplane coming. Well, I didn't know what it was at first, but the closer the airplane got, the more visible it was, and I could recognize it as a Russian MiG. Well, I seen the Russian MiG, and I took off running up the hill, and at that particular time, I was probably the fastest man in the United States. And the MiG was firing 50 millimeter bullets at me. Thank goodness he missed. But the son of a gun missed. He turned around, and he come back, and he shot at me again before I could get into the trench. Once into the trench, I was safe, and I did make it to the trench.
Wow. Sounds like you were meant to be here, Bob. You had quite a few close calls.
I can go on for a while, but I think that's enough. Unless you want to hear more, I'll tell you more.
Well, I want to ask you about, when you're in the military, I hear other people talk to me that they treat their fellow soldiers or Marines as brothers, and sometimes you forge pretty good relationships with them, and then some of them we lose. And I think you told me a little bit about one guy, and did you tell me he was decapitated, or?
Yes, my best friend.
Oh, how'd that happen?
he didn't pull his head back from a mortar quick enough.
Were you there to see that?
No, he was on an outpost.
Thank God. Heard that you received.
Excuse me,
No, that's
Chris.
okay.
As far as forming friends in the military, especially in combat, you don't have too many. You may have one or you may have two at the most. The reason is you don't want to get too close to anybody because they might not be here the next minute.
Well, that makes sense. Well, I heard that you received a Purple Heart. And how did you receive? Actually, you got 2 Purple Hearts, correct?
Yes.
And how did that happen?
It was from a piece of shrapnel from a mortar, from a Chinese mortar that was shooting. Both times, once in the wrist and once in the leg. They were minor injuries, but they sent me back to a hospital called, what do they call them on TV? Those
You said MASH before.
MASH, yeah. They sent me back to a MASH place. They bandaged me up and sent me right back up to the front lines. So,
Get right back at it, huh?
yeah.
Oh, boy. And we think about what our men and women went through at time of war, and even those who are joining the military. I mean, you joined because you said, I want to be able to support our country and be there in time of war. And it wasn't too soon thereafter we were in war, right? Not too far after World War II did we get into the Korean War.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's true. It's very true.
Just so thankful to the men and women. I think the people within our country, especially the youth, take that for granted and don't understand the risk that's involved with even putting yourself out there. These men and women don't know if we're going to go to war. They don't know what their future holds, but they do know that they're representing the United States of America. And Christina and I want to make sure that we bring these stories to everybody because the truth needs to be revealed. And a lot of this is being kept hush-hush because they're trying to change our country. And we want to make sure that doesn't happen. Right, Christina?
Right. And I also wanted to recognize the fact that Bob was telling us that he was basically had the wonderful life. He was in college at Ohio State, football player, very good football player. And he decided to stop all of that and go serve his country. That's very admirable.
Absolutely.
I think it's very stupid.
Well, when you look at what's going on in our country now, it makes you think, what the heck, you know? I'm willing to do this, and we got guys kneeling when the freaking national anthem is being played, right? So that's very frustrating.
And that's what that's how I feel. That's why that makes me so angry when I see people kneeling at the national anthem at games in different places, because in my opinion, you're slapping each one of these warriors and people that fought, bled, and died for our freedoms. You're basically slapping them in the face. And it's that just makes me very angry. There's so many other ways. If you're upset about something that's going on in the country, you feel like things are not fair, there's many other ways to display that. The platform should not be when you are at work as some kind of an athlete. That is not the time or the place. And the national anthem is absolutely not the time to show disrespect to all of our veterans.
I agree. I think we wanted to ask a question having to do with once you finding out that you're coming home. What was going on in your mind, Bob? Besides yippee-yi-yay, I made it.
Yes, that's very true. All I could think about was buying some civilian clothes, getting out of that filthy uniform I wore for a year, going to a restaurant, eating a nice steak, going to a drugstore, getting a nice ice cream sundae. Most of my thoughts were towards food. And my biggest thought was seeing my mother and my father again.
Yes, I bet. Did it ever cross your mind while you were there that you may never see your family again? Did you ever lay in your bunker and fear that you would never make it home?
No, because I talked to God every night.
That's great news. So God basically gave you comfort while you were there.
He gave me comfort and he saved my life.
Absolutely.
Some of those near-death experiences for sure.
And you had pneumonia twice while you were there.
Yes.
And the one time, if you wouldn't have been there, according to what you just said, that you would have been right in the line of where all those men ended up dead.
There was an outpost that I was on that I was evacuated from because I had pneumonia. I was evacuated to one of those MASH outfits, and I was told the next day, Bob, you're lucky you got evacuated because that outpost was overrun and everyone was killed. And if I hadn't have been evacuated, I would have been one of the dead.
Wow.
I wanted to ask you real quick, Bob, about you said about food. So when you were, fighting in that Korean War, what was the type of food that you guys were given?
Well, they were called sea rations. They came in a package. There was a little tin of. They had a variety, but I'll tell you some of the variety. In these little tins, they had beans and wieners. The other one, they had chili. The other one, they had beef stew. The other one, they had, a variety of stuff that was no good. And you heated these over a small little candle that was in your packet. You lit it and put your can on top of it, and that's how you heated your food.
Wow.
How was the food? The food was terrible. I went into Korea 187 pounds, solid as a brick, because I just came from training for football, and I was 187, and I was solid. You couldn't grab me nowhere. I had no fat. I come home from Korea, I weighed 142 pounds. Wow. That gives you some idea of the food.
Wow.
But it wasn't long. My mother put those 40 pounds right back on me.
Awesome.
So, Bob, and as we close here, what kind of advice would you give the younger generation of today?
Get an education. Listen to your mother. Listen to your father. Do what they tell you. And be a good American. And praise God.
Very good.
Sound advice from my perspective.
Well, Bob, did you have anything else that you'd like to conclude with?
No, except thank you very much for having me on the air with you, and I appreciate it, and I hope that I satisfied the interview.
You did exceptional, and we are so, so thankful, not only for you taking time out to interview and tell everybody all of the amazing things that you went through, but also thank you so much for your service. Thank you for serving your country. Thank you for fighting for us. And we're going to keep up the fight that you started. And we will not let communism take over America without putting up a fight. The older generation, you guys stood in the gap. And now it's our generation's turn to stand in the gap for our kids and grandkids and future generations. So thank you, Bob, and all the other veterans out there that stood in that gap for us. We are forever grateful to you and so thankful. So thank you so much, Bob.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, Chris. You're welcome, Greg. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're most welcome. Thank you for taking time and sharing with us. I think this is invaluable. People are definitely going to be blessed by getting a chance to listen to these stories that we put out there for them.
So this is just the beginning of our Memorial Day gratitude that we want to show to the veterans. We're going to try to gather up a few more veterans and have them interviewed to let people hear the valuable information and the stories that these veterans have to share that are going unheard. And that's just not the way it should be. They need to be out there telling their stories so the younger generations has more of appreciation for this country. Instead of going down and burning down buildings and looting, they go sign up to defend their country.
Third and final segment, and the most important segment, right? And that's our Bible verse of the week we want you to meditate on. Christina, what do we have this week?
This week is 1 Peter 5:10, which says, "And after you have suffered a little while, the God of all grace, who has called you to his eternal glory in Christ, will himself restore, conform, strengthen, and establish you." I don't know about you guys, but I had kind of a rough week as Some of us do. Sometimes you have a great week, and other times you just have a week that you struggle to get through. And every single person listening has some kind of a struggle. And so I just want to remind everybody that every season ends. So if you're facing pain, it will end. If you're facing heartache, it will end. If you're facing tears from heartache or some kind of problems that you're facing in your life, that will also end. This is not going to last forever, whatever you're going through. And because of the hope that we have in Jesus, the suffering does not last forever. So that's good news. So just remember that when you're going through tough times, as we all do, and we have a season of things that aren't seeming to go our favor, that it will come to an end and better times are on the horizon. And so with that, I'll just go ahead into the prayer. And Lord, we just thank you so much for everything you've done for us. We thank you for living in a free country. We thank you for blessing us with your mercies and your grace every single day. And we thank you that all the seasons eventually change, all the tears eventually stop, the heartache and comes to an end, and you will bring brighter days into our lives. So I just want to encourage everybody to trust in you and put their hope in you, because you hold tomorrow, and we just trust you with our tomorrows. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay, and then next week, what can we expect, Christina?
So next week, we're going to continue the tribute to our war heroes. If you know anybody that is a veteran of war, or if you are a veteran of war and you'd like to share your story, we would love to hear that. Just let us know on our website. If you're friends with me on Facebook, send me a message through Messenger and let me know. We would love to hear your story. And we know that you're all going to love Bob's story. He did a fantastic job. And again, we're so thankful that Bob shared his story with us.
Okay, and remember the website is abklee3.podbean.com. Check it out. See you next week.
Bye, everybody.